Welcome back into the 143 Under Review, coming at you live on a beautiful day here in College Station. The sun is shining.
Super Bowl 57, to which both of us are very, very pleased with the outcome.
We are hyped. We are
anti-Eagles fans, anti-Jalen Hurts fans, because we are Cowboys fans at heart. We are so happy that Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs reigned true yesterday. And continued the dynasty.
A great game. A lot of Eagles fans are pretty mad, saying the refs decided the game on a holding call. At the end of the game, James Bradbury did come out and say that was holding. That was my fault. And he took the blame for it. So it was holding, Eagles fans. Okay, and you can watch the replay as many times as you want. And you can see the tug on the jersey, which is holding. Okay, and also, welcome in. It is Super Bowl 57,
Absolutely.
episode
Welcome.
57, our Super Bowl
Post-Super
show.
Bowl special.
Yeah, like we do every year, and we did it last year, and we're doing it this year, so it's basically an annual thing now. We're gonna get you started though with the stat of the week, and then we will dive right into player of the week, and then we'll dive right into what we have for y'all today about the Super Bowl. Our stat of the week is indeed about the Kansas City Chiefs. They went into the fourth quarter yesterday down by 6 points, and your stat is that they have gone 8 straight games. When trailing in the fourth quarter, they've gotten a win. So 8 straight games of trailing in the fourth, and they've come out with a win.
Walking out with a victory.
No matter what the score is, you can never count the Chiefs out, and that's exactly what happened last night, which obviously nobody thought that they were out of it going into the fourth quarter.
No, absolutely not.
And just a great comeback by the Chiefs. We'll go into that here in a second. And stat was brought to you by Andrews Logistics. My bad.
Yes, absolutely. And your player of the week is, you guessed it, Patrick Mahomes, receiving Super Bowl MVP, his second Super Bowl MVP, and his second Super Bowl ring. He becomes the 13th quarterback to win multiple rings. So he is in good company.
On his way to greatness.
His statistics were 21 completions off 27 attempts, 182 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns to no interceptions. So he was very efficient in the pocket, and he also kind of got it done with his legs despite having a bummed ankle. 6 rushing attempts for 44 yards.
That he did, and we could not be more pleased with the performance we saw from Patrick Mahomes last night, which we'll go into here in a second. But congratulations, Pat, on being the player of the week, as well as Super Bowl MVP, regular season MVP, and a Super Bowl champion. So just a good week all in all for Pat. I'm sure the player of the week by Under Review really capped that off for him. He's probably, he doesn't even need to play another season at this point. He has it all. Before we get started, though, real quick, we just wanted to give a huge shout out to the Excel Still More podcast, led by Chris Emerson, a great podcast to help you in your daily life with a lot of helpful advice, scripture, and just everything that he covers in that podcast. It's a great listen. Go give it a listen. He does a great job. We love Chris here. Good friends with Chris, and we just wanted to give him a shout out. Because he as well shouted out our podcast. So go give Chris and the Excel Still More podcast a listen for help on your daily walk. Now, we dive into the Super Bowl. Nick, what stood out to you most?
The big thing was Patrick Mahomes' ankle and the questionability of how would that affect his playing level?
That was a big question mark.
It was safe to say that it had no effect. He was even bold enough to go out and rush for almost 50 yards.
I mean, it looked like he had re-aggravated it there for
right at the end of the second quarter,
Yes.
But luckily, they went into halftime and he was able to rest it up in the locker room. And then he came out. The Chiefs went down and scored immediately, and then they didn't. And then they scored every time they had the ball in the second half. So, to me, what stood out was Patrick Mahomes being unfazed about his ankle. Everyone was kind of favoring the Eagles because they didn't think that Patrick Mahomes was going to be able to handle their defense with his hurt ankle, but he proved everyone wrong, and I was very, very pleased.
Biggest thing for the Chiefs going into the season is they lost Tyreek Hill. They lost Matthew, their lockdown safety, the Honey Badger, they lost a couple of big names, and so a lot of people were starting to count them out of obviously not count them out of just the playoffs or anything, but the Super Bowl and being champions again because they lost some big pieces. And I think it just shows last night that really all they need is just Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I'd say the Bengals last year, all they had was Joe Burrow and some good receivers. They had no defense. They had no O-line. They still made it to the Super Bowl. So I think it's just showing that if you have a legendary quarterback, you can get things done in this league. And like a lot of people were saying, the Eagles are the most complete team in football, right? They have great defense,
Absolutely.
great weapons, just a good quarterback. They have all this stuff. And yesterday just showed us that having the most complete team does not necessarily make you a champion. I think Patrick Mahomes really came out, and when he needed to get the job done, and a lot of people will point at the stats and be like, he didn't have that many passing yards like he normally does, you know? But, I mean, he came alive in the second half. When he needed to get the job done, he did. And he just showed, he just showed that he made all of it, like Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore got touchdowns. These guys never really touched the ball. Juju Smith-Schuster had some key catches yesterday. Travis Kelce doing what Travis Kelce does. I mean, it was just a great offensive clinic.
I think the
by
Chiefs'
Patty.
offense was just extremely more efficient in the Super Bowl than the Eagles because you can look at the stats and it looks incredibly lopsided quarterback-wise in favor of the Eagles, right? But you also look at the time of possession, and the Eagles, like, their drives were taking way, way longer than the Chiefs were. And that's how I thought that the Chiefs were just being more efficient with how they were moving the ball down the field. And that was what ultimately led to their success. And also with Jalen Hurts, he had a costly mistake. You obviously know what it was. It was 14-7. The Eagles were winning, and they had just gotten the ball.
They were driving.
And then he just, I don't know, mishandles the snap, doesn't get his hands firmly on it, whatever, drops it.
He was running out, and he just dropped it.
Kicks it away
Kicks it
straight
right
to
to
the
the defense.
defender, and he picks it up and runs it in for 6.
And we would be lying if we told y'all that we didn't love that play. I mean,
that made me very happy.
It made me very happy as well.
It put a smile on my face.
At that point, Harrison Butker had just missed a field goal. Or he didn't just miss a field goal, but he had missed a field goal, kind of stopping the Chiefs' momentum a little bit. The Eagles had gone down and scored, then stopped the Chiefs, got the ball back. So it was kind of looking like it was going to be another Eagles game where they just run away with the lead, and it's tough for the other team to come back. That happens, ties the game up, and then you're like that.
Because I think everyone at that point was like, "Oh no, the Eagles are going to drive down and score, and it's going to be a 21-7 game, and we're going to be having."
It's very tough to come back from down 14.
Yes, the Chiefs come back from down 14, and that mistake proved to be pretty costly.
Very costly.
Because when you have two teams of this caliber that are the best teams in the league, every single little mistake counts, and unfortunately for the Eagles, that one little mistake kind of led to their downfall because that was the ultimate momentum shift.
They lost
into
by
the
3.
Chiefs' favor.
So,
absolutely.
I think though, I really want to say the biggest thing that we can take away. Obviously, the Eagles have a great team. As much as we don't like the Eagles, they have a great team. There's no debating that. Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. I would argue that he's a better running back than he is a quarterback, but it shows what me and Nick have been saying all year about the Eagles. Okay? They control the clock and they run the ball very well. And when they're in the lead, they can play very efficiently. But what happened when they went down yesterday?
They couldn't deliver. Jalen Hurts folded under the pressure. That's exactly what I believe we said last week pre-Super Bowl, was saying that once the Chiefs get ahead and the Eagles go down, they're not going to understand how to handle it, and they ultimately didn't.
And they came back and tied the game up, but it was kind of like they're playing frantically at that point, because they're not used to being down. They're used to being up. They score on the first drive. I mean, things were looking really well for them in the first half, obviously, except for the drop
Fumble
kick
recovery for
thing that
6.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts had. But it was interesting to see that when they were put in a position where there wasn't that much time left, and they were down, they couldn't get the win. And that's what we've been saying all year. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs did a great job of controlling the last 5 minutes of the game
and
running the clock down.
Huge.
And I think that just shows it comes down to coaching. Andy Reid is a way better coach than Nick Sirianni, and Andy Reid put together a pretty legendary, systematic kind of drive to not only get down the field,
but also to kill the clock.
Burn the clock.
Kill the clock.
And Isaiah Pacheco, the rookie, had a very big hand in that drive with a crucial third down conversion.
And at first, everyone was screaming for Jerick McKinnon to have taken it in at the very end when he chose to go down at the 1. But ultimately, that was the better call because, yeah, you go up by a touchdown, but also you give the ball back to the Eagles with, I believe there was like a minute and a half or a little more than that at that point.
And that drive showed the experience of the Chiefs and just
because
McKinnon being
Patrick
there.
Mahomes and all those other guys, they had been in that situation before, not just in the playoffs, but like in the regular season.
Right.
They had been doing that all year long, so they knew how to handle the 2-minute game-winning drive to ultimately put the dagger in to win the game.
And I think that it was a great Super Bowl. First of all, very close, which is what everyone wanted to see, and the Chiefs won, which is what we wanted to see. And we loved it because of that, but I think we are going to need to address the
penalty situation.
Yes. So I first of all, I want to say that I think the refs, even though we said last week that they were the crew coming into it with the highest flag rate amount in the NFL for the last 3 seasons, there was not that many flags.
I was going to say that for the most part, they were letting the boys play. But everyone had a huge problem with that holding call at the end of the game. And like Joseph said, I'm on his side. I'm on the ref side. I think that was a great call because what did he do? He held and impeded him from breaking out on his route and being able to move up the field.
He was, even with the hold, Juju beat him.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Would have gotten to the ball and scored. And he did tug on that jersey. I mean, for some reason they were showing the clip of where he didn't tug on the jersey, but right before that he had given him a pull.
It was like whenever he first cut inside, he kind of grabbed his shoulder, but they weren't showing that. They were showing after when he kind of put his hand on his back at the end.
And you might ask us, would y'all be saying the same thing if that was flipped and it was a Chiefs defender on an Eagles receiver? And yes, because he clearly grabbed the jersey and impeded his
absolutely.
route. So it's definitely a flag. Even, I mean, and hats off to James Bradbury for coming out and
being
owning
able to own up to that mistake.
And saying that was a penalty. But you still have Eagles fans and a lot of other people who aren't even Eagles fans saying that shouldn't have been called. I mean, the ref's job is to call plays, and they're not going to just stop calling in the last 2 minutes of the game just because a penalty might affect the game.
I mean, yes, that is ultimately looked at as a game-changing penalty. I'm using air quotes here for those of you that are just listening. But it's like, you would call that if it was the second quarter.
Right.
Or the first quarter or whatever it is. So why would you just all of a sudden let it go because it's the fourth quarter and it's the last 2 minutes
I would
of the game or whatever?
I would also say earlier in the game there was a third down conversion where Juju ran
early
a
in the
slant.
second quarter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Juju ran like a slant, and I mean he basically got tackled, and they didn't
let
call
that one go, so the Chiefs punted the ball away back to the Eagles.
So their Eagles had opportunities, and like Nick Sirianni even came out after the game and said like it's not determined by one call. Obviously, you have a whole 60 minutes worth of playing time. There were things that I mean Jalen Hurts, if he hadn't punted the ball to giving up that
fumble
touchdown
recovery for 6. I mean, that's pretty
that
huge.
changes the game. So you can't blame the entire Super Bowl on one call. But, I mean, I think that Super Bowl was exactly what the fans wanted to see. It was very much offense, and there was very little defense to be found in that game. I would say 0 defense.
I think people were expecting that for the most part. I was kind of expecting that because the Chiefs don't have the greatest defense in the world. They have a decent defense, but overall, it's pretty weak. And then, obviously, the Eagles have a really, really good defense.
The Eagles' secondary has struggled, though.
The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and it is physically impossible to cover any of those guys.
The Eagles have a really good front line. They're really good at getting to the quarterback, which they did a couple times. They got back there, but they didn't record a single sack.
There was no sacks. I don't even feel like there was really any QB pressures either.
They got back
I
there a
would
couple
say
times,
for the
but
most
Mahomes
part,
got out of it.
Mahomes was able to, get out and kind of do whatever he wanted with the ball. And the other thing was, Joseph alluded to it earlier, talking about the secondary. I seem to remember a defender by the name of Darius Slay Jr., who likes to call himself Big Play Slay. I didn't see any big plays from Slay
I
yesterday.
actually saw a couple of big
I don't know
plays
about
on
you.
Slay.
I did.
He gave up a couple of big plays. He was good in the first 5 weeks of the season, and that's where he started calling himself Big Play Slay, because he locked down a couple of receivers in the first 5 weeks of the season. Then after that,
What it was is
nothing.
when they played the Vikings, he shut down
That's
Justin
right.
Jefferson.
That's right.
And so everyone was like, oh, man, this guy is the truth. He's phenomenal. But then he just kind of low-key got cooked for the rest of the
You
season.
want to know who the truth is? Trayvon.
Well, I
Trayvon's
was
the
going to
truth.
say Trayvon was kind of the same way
Yeah,
this
Trayvon
season.
got cooked, but his name
Every
starts
now
with
and,
a TR.
like,
So.
yeah, he would lock down a stud. He locked down Jamar Chase. We played the Bengals week
did.
2.
He did.
Right? And so it was kind of the same situation as Darius Slay, but obviously Trayvon got cooked, I would say, just as
And,
much as Darius Slay did.
I mean, the Chiefs secondary was just as bad. There was not very much secondary being. I mean, A.J. Brown with that touchdown yesterday was triple covered for that second Eagles touchdown when it was like a 50-yard bomb to A.J. Brown. He had 3 guys on him in the end zone, and all he had to do was act like he just did a little deception. Where he
there was
did a juke move and then walked to the other side and grabbed the ball. So
Jalen Hurts just kind of threw it up and was like, hopefully AJ catches it. And
I mean, AJ is a great receiver.
but
You
the
can't take that
defender,
away from
yeah,
him.
absolutely. He's low-key turning into slant boy. That's
He
what
is.
we were noticing yesterday, and I'm noticing it a little bit earlier in the playoffs and kind of towards the end of the season, is Michael Thomas has inherited the name Slant Boy because that's like his
route.
that is all he runs. And
And he's good at it.
I've noticed a lot of AJ Brown slants.
And Michael Thomas doesn't ever play anymore because he's always hurt. So it looks like A.J. Brown might be the new slant guy.
Who knows?
Except he also is great I mean, he's just great, period. He put, I don't remember the defender, but it might have been, it was Justin Watson, the rookie. He cooked him yesterday. He broke his ankles. He was on the ground on a juke move. And A.J. Brown showed up yesterday. And Devonta Smith did really well. The Eagles' offense played pretty well, but in the end, it kind of came down to just Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes. And he didn't need that much of the clock. The Eagles had dominated time of possession, but Patrick Mahomes didn't need that much of the clock to go away with
I mean,
the win.
eating up the clock all game long is kind of, I would say, what led to the Eagles' downfall, because at the end, they gave it back to the Chiefs with just enough time to drive down the field and score, but also there was a little enough time for them to kind of eat the rest of the clock away and take that drive basically to the end of the game. I believe there was 8
Yes,
seconds left.
There was 8 seconds left.
But Jalen Hurts showed off his big arm. Or wait, no, he didn't. Just kidding. He threw it from about the 30 to the other 30,
Which
was,
I could do.
It was pretty pathetic.
It was
but
a pretty bad
I enjoyed
throw.
watching that.
It was a good end to the Super Bowl, just to see a duck just fly out of his hand and
It was horrible.
didn't even get close to any of his receivers.
As soon as he was dropping back, I was like, oh, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
But I think also yesterday just kind of showed there were a lot of times Jalen Hurts is not really much of a scramble out of the pocket and find a receiver kind of guy. Once he starts scrambling, most of the time he takes off.
I think the only two I can remember is it was like a 3rd and 6 to Pascal, and then the big 3rd and 16 or whatever that was to
Yes.
Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
Which, okay, come on now, you got to overturn that. All right,
It
that
didn't
was-
look like it
that
didn't
was
look
not
like
a catch.
He had a
or whatever. There you
possession.
go. The refs did you a favor there, Eagles fans.
Exactly.
They gave you that one, so you have that as well. But other than those two times, it seemed like every time he was running out of the pocket or kind of flushed out, he would either take off for 2 or 3 yards, or he would just end up throwing it away.
He's just showing that if his first read's not there and his second read's not there, he kind of just scrambles and goes. And he's good at it right now, but you can't do that in the long run because you get older, your legs get weaker, you get hurt. I mean, Lamar Jackson, that's
because
exactly what
when
he
you
did.
When you're a run-first quarterback, right, you're subject to more hits, and your
Mm-hmm.
body is subject to more wear and tear. And that's why you see running backs who don't last as long as other position
At
players
Zeke.
because they're getting hit a ton. And that's why quarterbacks that have been pocket passers.
Mm-hmm.
Brady, Manning, Breeze, Roethlisberger, even the other Manning, Rivers, all those guys, they were able to play for centuries because, they were able to sit back in the pocket and they weren't run-first quarterbacks.
And that's why Patrick Mahomes is so great. He only runs when he needs to, but for the most part, he gets the job done with his arm. And there's discussion, and we won't have it today, but I'm sure we'll have it this offseason about, whether or not he'll overtake Brady for the new GOAT status.
I think
not yet, maybe.
He's
but
obviously
he's on track.
He's on track. A lot of people think that, but the tough thing is to beat Brady.
You have to win 8.
You have to be so good for so long, and that's not to take anything away from Patrick Mahomes.
But it's tough to win a Super Bowl.
He's been in the league for 5 years, and he's been phenomenal for all of the years that he's started.
You know what? He's been in the league for 6. He started 5.
For 5.
And every year he started, they've hosted the AFC Championship game. So he's been phenomenal.
He's been great the 5 years that he's been the starter, but the issue is to beat Brady, you got to be great for an extremely long amount of time because what Brady did is not going to be seen again for a while.
But we'll end up having that discussion later, I'm sure.
I also gave the take that I think Travis Kelce will retire as the GOAT tight end.
I mean, you can disagree with me. I think he already is.
I was going to say, people have been making the argument that he is the greatest tight end right now. I would say not yet, and that can be a discussion topic for another week, but I think he will retire as the greatest tight end of all time.
I think you just saw the big players show up in the Super Bowl, and the best players won. Patrick Mahomes is better than Jalen Hurts, and I don't want to hear anything about how Jalen Hurts played a great game. The scoreboard says it all. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and he had no defense to start out the job.
I know a lot of people were trying to say that Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes, and frankly, if he outplayed him, then can you tell me why the score has the Eagles losing?
You can't be like the Chiefs' defense carried him because they didn't. It was Patrick Mahomes. The running game didn't carry him.
No, it didn't.
It was Patrick Mahomes. He carried them to victory, and Eagles fans can say everything they want. You can be like, well, we got further than the Cowboys, but at the end of the day, you're just like the Cowboys this season. You didn't get a ring. So
the other thing to think about for the Eagles is this Patrick Mahomes was the first true starting quarterback that they've gotten to play since Daniel Jones.
That's true.
In the what was that? A couple weeks ago
in the playoffs.
Or whatever. Because last week they got
you whooped up on Josh Johnson. Good job.
The fourth string, and then what happened when they played a real quarterback? They got destroyed. Patrick Mahomes just picked him apart because he's one of the best to ever do it.
He is, and there's no taking that away. What a great Super Bowl, and we loved it. And good job, Chiefs, for stealing one away from the Eagles.
Absolutely. And right before we end, we'll do another little game just in case anyone liked that little QB comparison. It's something a little different, and the reason I chose this particular stat is because the person who has this stat this year, it was kind of surprising to me. So I just want to ask Joseph.
Okay.
Do you know who had the highest completion percentage this past season?
Of starters?
Is
that a starter that I know?
Yes, it is absolutely a starter that you know.
Dak Prescott.
No, it is not Dak Prescott.
All right, I get three guesses.
Yeah, you can get 3 guesses. You can get 2 more.
Kirk Cousins?
No.
You were surprised by it?
I was very surprised by it.
I'm going to go with Geno Smith.
There you go. It was Geno Smith.
Let's go.
At 69.8% completion rating, which just shows how efficient he was. And I think it kind of makes him an unsung hero because the Seahawks were kind of put under the spotlight this season because they had given up Russell Wilson.
Right.
And low-key fleeced the Broncos for tons of picks and a couple players.
It's looking like they won that trade.
And Pete Carroll said so confidently at the beginning of the season that they're going into the fires of the NFL year with Geno Smith, and everyone was like, you got to be kidding me. And he proved to be efficient, at least at quarterback, set a record in Seattle Seahawks franchise history, and he had the best completion percentage this year.
I think he deserves all the praise that he got and gets, and he got the comeback player of the year. He deserved that.
Led him to a playoff game as well. I mean, yeah, they lost to the 49ers, but they had one of the best defenses last year. Everyone was expecting them to lose that game.
We lost to the 49ers, so
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Geno Smith deserves all the credit that he
So
gets.
I figured we'd just shout out Geno Smith at the end. So good job,
Also,
Geno.
This concludes the NFL season for us. We will obviously now we're entering into that off-season phase where we kind of talk about whatever we want. So if y'all have suggestions,
Feel
let
free
us
to
know.
Throw out ideas. What do you want to hear?
Next week we'll be doing an NBA episode with our NBA analyst Ian Hancock, who has been crunching the numbers and doing lots of research for this upcoming episode. As we get ready to talk NBA trades that have happened and how the second half of the NBA season is going to look. So be on the lookout for next week's episode. But this has been our Super Bowl special, and it's the Cowboys didn't win, but it was still a good NFL season. And congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Absolutely, you have 31 teams that did not win the Super Bowl this year. Yeah, the Cowboys were included. Thought I'd just leave you with that.
That's a good point.
So here's where we like to end our shows on Under Review. I brought you a quote from Travis Kelce. Passion sits in your heart and is within you.
It does.
And that's the truth.
It came out yesterday. We saw it in him.
Absolutely. We
He
saw the
always plays with
passion of
that.
Travis Kelce after the game. He always likes to put on a show.
And y'all keep up that passion this week.
Absolutely.
In your week. And thank you for listening. And tune in next week for our NBA episode here on Under Review.